Hi everyone. Today I've come with yet another beautiful topic, that is how to pray. Whether we should pray with our hands lifted or whether we should pray in silence. Personally, I like to pray with my hands lifted because I grew up in the middle of charismatic renewal. But before the charismatic renewal of late 80s or early 90s, the idea of lifting hands and praying was quite unheard of in Christian circles, especially Catholic and Jacobite circles. But with charismatic movement, praise and worship has become an integral part of Christian worship. But the idea of lifting hands and praying was not receptive for everyone, especially the older generation people. Not for everyone, but for quite a few. I heard many testimonies in this regard. I heard this testimony of a person who was 55 years old. This is a story of 25 years back, okay? So he said he liked the charismatic retreats, he liked everything, but he didn't like to lift his hands and pray. But his wife and children, they liked to do that. And he used to attend the retreats with them. And one day, during the worship, the priest asked everyone to close their eyes and lift their hands and pray. So he closed his eyes, but he didn't lift his hand. So suddenly someone lifted both his hands and it stayed there. So initially he thought it's the priest or one of the volunteers who did that. So immediately he opened his eyes and no one was around. Then he understood that it is Holy Spirit only did that. So that was one testimony. Another is a story my father related. A person whom he knew, he went to the retreat in Muringu Retreat Center. It's a very famous retreat center in Kerala. So during the praise and worship, he went outside the tent and he was standing under a coconut tree because he didn't want to lift his hands and pray. At the same time, a small coconut fell on his arm and a small injury happened, a small swelling or something, and that there was some minor pain. So he told this story. And I was fascinated listening all this and all the miracles that is happening there. And I also wanted to go and attend the retreat. But my father was not in favor of going and attending the retreats. He said, we are regularly going to church, you are attending the catechism class, we are having daily prayers. So that is enough, you don't have to go for retreat and all. So he didn't allow me to go for a retreat. So after a couple of years, a retreat center started in our hometown. So there was, on Saturdays, there was half-day worship there. So I asked my father for permission and that he agreed because you don't have to stay there. It's just half day. You can go and come back. So when I went there, I liked it very much. I was attending the praise and worship for the first time. I liked it very much. And during the prayer, Father was telling many people are receiving the gift of Holy Spirit. It is like a electric current passing through their body, or it's like water falling on them. So I was hearing all of this for the first time. I was like, oh, is it happening today also? We read in Bible during the initial years, the disciples received the Holy Spirit. They had the gift of tongues. But after that, I haven't heard of that. So I was really surprised. And I also wanted to receive Holy Spirit. So I closed my eyes and earnestly prayed for Holy Spirit. But I didn't have any experience. So I didn't get Holy Spirit. Then I thought, okay, maybe it is only for some chosen people or some holy people. It's not for a sinner like me. So I was a bit disappointed, but I thought, okay, it's not for me. It's like for only holy people will get Holy Spirit. So, but I liked the retreat and I was going there continuously. And when I went for the third or fourth time, I don't exactly remember, during the praise and worship, I closed my eyes and I was praying. And suddenly something struck my hand. It's like a lightning struck my hand. It was with great force and my hand started moving back and forth. My left hand, it started moving back and forth. I was like, at the same moment, I was filled with great joy. I was filled with happiness. I started crying. I understood that I received Holy Spirit and I was overjoyed. And I was crying there. I was not aware of the surroundings. Praise and worship is going on. People are praying. I didn't open my eyes and my hand is moving back and forth. It's with a great force, great power. It's not from outside, it's from within my hand. It's moving in great force. But what struck me more is the joy I experienced. Full time I was crying because I was overjoyed. I couldn't believe that I received the Holy Spirit, and same moment that something happened to my heart also. I was filled with the joy of Holy Spirit. We read in Bible that the fruit of love, joy, happiness, it's all fruit of Holy Spirit. So that day I experienced that joy, that happiness. So there was some underlying sadness in my heart. It's not depression or anything, a mild form of depression, I would say. But on that day, I was filled with that joy, and that peace that I experienced, it really never left me. So I've gone through many ups and downs in my life, but that underlying peace that I received, it stayed with me always. So I received that on that day. And during the entire praise and worship, I was crying and praying with my hands moving back and forth. It was maybe 40-45 minutes prayer. And then Mass started. Everything was like in a dream I'm seeing. Father is coming. He was coming for offering the Mass. And then I slowly came back to the reality after half an hour or 45 minutes when the Mass started. Then I'm like, oh, still my hand is moving back and forth. So I tried to stop with my right hand. I tried to stop. It's not stopping. I tried to stop. It's not stopping. It's with full force it's moving. So I tried to stop with my right hand. I hold my left hand with my right hand, and both hands started moving because this is more powerful. So both the hands started moving. Then I was like, oh my God, it will never stop or what? But after the Mass, when the Mass ended, it slowly... that moment slowly stopped, but that joy remained with me. I was overjoyed. When I came back home, I was telling my father, I'm telling everyone, whomever I meet, I tell, okay, I went there, I received the Holy Spirit. Some people, right, they haven't heard of all this, so there was a cold response. I couldn't, I'm like, oh, why did I tell them? But I couldn't control that joy, and I couldn't control not telling them. I am telling everyone, I received the Holy Spirit because I experienced so much joy that day. I couldn't stop that. So I still, even today, that is the happiest day in my life. That joy and peace I experienced that day, I never experienced again. And it was a happiest moment in my life. There is an end time prophecy by Prophet Joel. In Joel 2:28 we read, after that it shall come to pass, I'll pour out my spirit on all the flesh. My sons and my daughters shall prophesy. The old man shall dream dreams. The young man shall see visions. And on those days, upon the men servants and maid servants, I'll pour out my spirit. So that's the end time prophecy by Prophet Joel. We see another end time prophecy in Matthew 24:24, where Jesus says, at the end time, many false Christ and false prophets will arise and perform many signs and wonders, even as to lead astray even the elect. So that's also another end time prophecy. So end time, two things happen. God will pour out His Spirit on all the flesh, on all His sons and daughters. At the same time, many false Christ and false prophets will arise and lead astray many, even the elect. So it's very powerful, so as to lead astray even the elect. So we need to really discern between the spirits. So I've taken couple of videos on how to discern the spirits and how to identify false prophets. So please listen to those videos. It's really helpful. I talk from my own experience and it's my own experience as well as observing others and by reading scriptures. And it's very important to discern the deceiving spirits. So coming back to our topic, so that is my background. So I personally like to lift my hands and pray. For me, it's like completely surrendering myself to God. When I lift my hands, I feel like I'm completely surrendering myself to God and I'm praying. So I personally like that. But is that the only worship that God accepts? No. In Matthew 6:5 we read, Jesus says, when you pray, do not be like hypocrites. They love to stand in streets and synagogues and pray in order to be seen by men. I tell you, they already received their reward. But when you pray, you go inside your room, shut the door, and pray in secret, and Father who sees in secret will reward you. So here Jesus says, when you pray, go inside your room and pray secretly, and your Father in heaven will give you the reward. So if you are like someone who has the attitude of that Pharisee who wanted to show off her devotion, then it is better to shut inside a room and pray. But at the same time, we see in 2 Samuel 6, David was leaping and dancing before God when Ark of Covenant was brought to Jerusalem. He was leaping and dancing before the Ark of Covenant in front of all his maidservants and men servants. But his wife Michal, she was ashamed. She didn't like that. She despised him because of that. But we see further down that God was angry with Michal and he punished her. So if we are having that attitude of Michal, then there is a serious problem. We should correct that. We shouldn't be ashamed in worshipping God in whatever form he asks, because Jesus was not ashamed when he was humiliated and bruised and when he was put to death on a cross. He suffered that humiliation for our sake, for our salvation. He was not ashamed. So we should also not be ashamed in worshipping God. If God asks us to worship by dancing and singing and lifting our hands, we should be ready to do that. We should not be ashamed of worshipping God. At the same time, we should not have that Pharisee attitude of showing off our devotion. So coming to a conclusion, we can worship God in whatever way we want, but that devotion should come from within our heart. It should bring us close to God. We should not be ashamed like Michal in worshipping God, and at the same time we should not have the attitude of Pharisee in showing off our devotion. So our devotion should come from heart and it should bring us close to God. God bless you all. Thank you.